Well, I'll tell you this.
platform.
What has happened is this used to be a huge agriculture in this area. If you drive anywhere, you see nothing but farm fields. When the General Motors came in this area and opened up the factories, a lot of those farmers left the farm fields and went into the factories, and the fields have been left alone, or they've been hobby farmed. When all the monocropping swept across this nation, and they were just buying up all the small farms, and they were growing food as far as you could see, they were using high amounts of pesticides and fertilizers, it didn't touch this area. So what we've been left with right now is one of the only areas left in this country that has organic, untouched, fertile soil where we can grow almost any crop we want. If we go to the breadbasket, if you want, the middle of the country, where they've been growing all these crops, their soil is destroyed and their crops won't grow unless they use more and more fertilizers and more pesticides every single year. And now that's the crops that these other countries or people are saying, we're not confident in the ability of these crops to help our people, and we don't want those. So what we're left with is land right here that we can utilize to grow crops that are very beneficial and that people do want to purchase and spend money.
Another thing you're going to be bumping up against is the subsidized fuel industry. It's using corn and soybeans for producing fuel.
Yeah, I agree. And it's
So you're gonna bump
highly
against those
inefficient.
folks as well.
Yeah, it's highly inefficient to use corn and soybeans. So the best plant, if you want to use, is the industrial hemp. So a lot of our engines, like the diesel engine, was originally designed to run on industrial hemp. And when Mr. Diesel was crossing the English Channel, he didn't make it to the other side. Henry Ford originally built cars out of industrial hemp, and they ran on industrial hemp. So any product you can make out of crude oil, like plastics is what the majority of those products may be, you can make out of industrial hemp. And you can grow it right here in Michigan, and it takes no pesticides or any fertilizers. You can grow it, cut it, and process it right here. And industrial hemps can be used to replace cotton as well. You can make any of the fabrics that line these chairs, you can make with industrial hemp, and you can make paper out of industrial hemp. So with lumber, 30% of the tree can be used to make the paper, and it takes a high amount of chemicals, high amounts of heat, and that all gets dumped into our rivers as pollution. With hemp, you can make paper out of it, and you're not using the high amounts of heat and temperature. And hemp protein from the seeds is one of the most nutritious foods on the planet. It's a complete amino acids and 3 tablespoons of hemp seeds that if we processed and milled those here is equivalent of a meal. So you could feed people on the hemp. So if we were to grow hemp in this area instead of those crops, it's being that we're on one of the best logistical systems in the country as well, so we have one of the best supply chains and logistics because we have shipping cars around the world. We can ship our products anywhere we wanted and put our factories back to work as well. Because it doesn't take a lot just to process the hemp. You just mill it, and you can have, this is making paper, this is making clothing and textiles, this is processing food, and this is processing plastics. And the hemp also can clean up the environment. So an environmental standard, it takes a lot of CO2 and greenhouse gases and that sort of sector out of the air as well. So I think just like Colorado went with cannabis as a smoking plant and has this huge industry that develops out of nowhere, as us as the 5th district, if we said, okay, we want to start growing industrial hemp, we would have an exploding industry here overnight. So people say, well, our roads are bad, what are we going to do for our roads? Well, if we created, as you were saying, if we were industrial hemp based in this area, you can take hemp and make it's actually a stronger product to pave the roads with hempcrete. You can fill a pothole and pave the entire road with hemp, and it's stronger than concrete. You can make cinder block out of it and build a house. You can drywall with it. And it's the same as like a product you just go in the field, cut it, bale it, and can sit there and you can process it. But it's a fantastic product, and the reason we're not utilizing it is specifically because of lobbying and legislature that they got in the back pockets of the lumber and oil industry.
If we can smoke it, if I would legalize it.
That?
If we can figure out a way to smoke it, we can probably get it legalized.
I don't know. I think one of the biggest issues is this similarity between the smokable, what they developed the word marijuana, and industrial hemp. So Hollywood got a lot of its original funding to make anti-hemp propaganda films, and they kind of developed the word marijuana, and then showed people smoke a joint, and then they would turn into kind of this vampire aspect, and they would, start killing people, and they were using that to villainize the industrial hemp. And so they were getting funding to make these little propaganda films. So in this district, if we can stand up and say we want to be the first people to actually grow local agriculture like we used to do, which we used to have an economy based on, then we can be ahead of the game and we can make a lot of money. And there is legislation that prevents the #1 cash crop in this country or in the world is actually industrialized hemp, if anybody's familiar with that. So it is not the smokable plant that contains THC, but our country was founded on industrial hemp, and a lot of the founding papers were written on industrial hemp, and our founding fathers all grew industrial hemp. And right now in Washington, D.C., that product is illegal to grow, and it's illegal because it rivals the cotton industry, the oil industry, the lumber industry, and the food industry. So my platform is not to say that we need to prevent or create legislation to prevent these other corporations, but we need to not allow legislation to prevent people from not being able to grow the most economical plant there is based on it just creates competition. I think if we had competition in this area, we would thrive.